Cleopatra was not waiting on a balcony, fanning herself dramatically, hoping Rome would notice her. She was doing math. Not romantic math, not which Roman general is cutest math. Actual survival math. Because when Cleopatra VII was born in 69 BCE, Egypt was not the glittering superpower people imagine. It was rich, yes. It was ancient, absolutely. But it was also politically fragile, drowning in debt, and dangerously dependent on Rome. Egypt was technically independent. Technically. In reality, Rome was that friend who lends you money and then rearranges your furniture. Cleopatra didn't inherit a throne. She inherited a problem. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was not exactly a titan of leadership. He paid Rome enormous sums to keep himself in power. When Egyptians revolted, he ran to Rome for help. Rome helped because Rome loved influence more than friendship. Cleopatra grew up watching this, watching Roman politics creep into Egyptian life, watching how power actually worked. And she learned something critical early. Egypt didn't need a love story. Egypt needed leverage. When her father died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra was 18 years old. According to tradition, she was supposed to co-rule with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. And because this was Ptolemaic Egypt, co-rule also meant marriage. Yes, brother, husband. We are not unpacking that today. The point is, Cleopatra tried to rule independently. She signed documents in her own name. She put her face alone on coins. She made decisions without asking the child king's advisors for permission. This did not go over well. Within a year, she was forced out of Alexandria by her brother's regents. Cleopatra fled east into Syria, gathering support, hiring mercenaries, building an army. She was 21. This is where the myth usually starts. The carpet scene, the dramatic entrance, Julius Caesar. But let's reset something. Cleopatra didn't seduce Caesar because she was bored. She did it because Rome was tearing itself apart, and she picked a side. In 48 BCE, Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt chasing his rival Pompey during Rome's civil war. Pompey was killed by Egyptian officials hoping to impress Caesar. Instead, Caesar was annoyed. Cleopatra saw opportunity. She needed Rome's strongest general to back her claim to the throne. Caesar needed stability in Egypt and access to its grain supply. So, Cleopatra had herself smuggled into the palace to meet him. The famous carpet? Probably more like a bedroll. Less Pinterest, more practicality. She didn't enter as a seductress. She entered as a negotiator. She spoke multiple languages, rare for her dynasty. She understood Egyptian culture, not just Greek elite politics. She could present herself as pharaoh to Egyptians and as an intellectual equal to Romans. Caesar didn't fall for beauty alone. He recognized competence. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra defeated her brother's forces. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile during battle. Cleopatra regained the throne and began ruling Egypt with Roman support. She had secured her first alliance. Then she had a son with Caesar, Ptolemy XV, known as Caesarion. This wasn't just romance. This was positioning. If Caesar recognized Caesarion as his heir, Cleopatra would tie Egypt directly to Rome's future leadership. That's not a love story. That's geopolitical chess. She even traveled to Rome in 46 BCE and stayed in Caesar's villa. She appeared in Roman society not as a hidden mistress, but as a foreign queen, visible, strategic, and controversial. Romans hated it, not because she was scandalous, because she was powerful. Then, in 44 BCE, Caesar was assassinated. Suddenly, Cleopatra's entire strategy collapsed. The man she had aligned with was dead. Rome descended into chaos again. Caesarion was not officially recognized as heir. Egypt was vulnerable. Many rulers would have panicked. Cleopatra recalculated. Rome split between powerful figures, Mark Antony, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, and others. Cleopatra waited. Then, Mark Antony summoned her to Tarsus in 41 BCE. He wanted answers about her loyalty. She arrived not defensively, but theatrically. Not because she was shallow, because optics matter. She sailed on a grand barge, dressed as Aphrodite, turning a political meeting into a spectacle. Mark Antony was impressed. But again, this wasn't random passion. Mark Antony controlled Rome's eastern territories. Cleopatra needed protection and stability. Antony needed money, ships, and Egypt's wealth for his campaigns. They formed an alliance. Yes, they became lovers. Yes, they had children. But underneath the drama was cold calculation. Cleopatra financed Antony's military campaigns. In return, Antony granted territories to her and their children. This strengthened Egypt's position in the eastern Mediterranean. From Rome's perspective, this looked dangerous. From Cleopatra's perspective, it was survival. Then came Octavian. Young, patient, politically ruthless. He understood something crucial. He didn't need to defeat Antony in battle alone. He needed to destroy Antony's reputation. So he reframed the conflict. It wasn't a Roman civil war. It was Rome versus a foreign queen. Octavian spread propaganda painting Cleopatra as a manipulative Eastern seductress who had corrupted Antony. He turned her into a villain in Roman imagination. It worked. The final confrontation came in 31 BCE, at the Battle of Actium. Cleopatra's fleet fought alongside Antony's. The battle turned against them. Cleopatra withdrew her ships. Antony followed. Historians debate why. Strategic retreat, panic, miscommunication. But the result was catastrophic. Octavian won. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt. For a moment, there was still hope. Cleopatra attempted negotiations. She may have even considered surrendering Egypt while preserving her children's power. Octavian was not interested in compromise. He wanted a triumph. In Roman tradition, defeated enemies were paraded through Rome in chains. Cleopatra understood what that meant. She had built alliances, played Roman politics, outmaneuvered rivals, preserved Egypt's independence longer than many thought possible in a world dominated by Roman expansion. She would not end as a spectacle. In 30 BCE, after Antony took his own life believing she had died, Cleopatra chose death. The exact method is debated. The famous asp story is dramatic but uncertain. What is certain is this: she chose the timing. Octavian entered Alexandria too late. Cleopatra was not paraded through Rome. She denied him that victory. Egypt became a Roman province. Caesarion was executed. Octavian became Augustus, Rome's first emperor. And Cleopatra became a legend. But notice what happened next. Roman writers shaped her memory. They emphasized seduction over strategy. They minimized governance. They reduced political calculation into romantic scandal. Because admitting that a foreign queen nearly outplayed Rome, that was uncomfortable. Cleopatra ruled for 22 years. She stabilized Egypt's economy. She navigated one of Rome's most violent political eras. She maintained Egyptian independence longer than seemed possible in a world dominated by Roman expansion. She spoke to her people in their own language. She presented herself as Isis incarnate to Egyptians and as a Hellenistic monarch to Greeks. She understood branding before branding existed. She wasn't lounging. She was maneuvering. The legend of Cleopatra focuses on beauty. The record shows intelligence. The myth says she conquered men. The history shows she managed empires. Did she use charisma? Of course. Charisma is a tool. But so is diplomacy. So is money. So is timing. And Cleopatra understood timing better than most rulers alive. She didn't start with strength. She inherited instability. She didn't rule from safety. She ruled from a geopolitical pressure cooker. Rome was expanding. Internal Roman politics were violent and unpredictable. Egypt was wealthy but militarily weaker. Every decision she made carried enormous risk. Align with Caesar? Risky. Have his child? Risky. Align with Antony? Risky. Fund his wars? Very risky. Oppose Octavian? Extremely risky. But doing nothing would have been fatal. So she played the only game available. For 20 years, it worked. She wasn't trying to conquer Rome. She was trying to survive Rome. And for a while, she succeeded. History often remembers outcomes. It rarely remembers resistance. Cleopatra lost the final round. but she delayed Roman absorption of Egypt. She shaped Mediterranean politics. She influenced the transition from Roman Republic to empire. And she controlled her narrative to the very end. Because even in death, she made a choice. Not to be displayed, not to be humiliated, not to be reduced. Ironically, the propaganda that tried to diminish her made her immortal. The dangerous foreign queen became a story too powerful to fade. Centuries later, artists painted her reclining dramatically. Playwrights romanticized her. Hollywood amplified her. But underneath the glamour, the eyeliner, the golden crowns, there was a ruler who understood power better than many of her Roman counterparts. Cleopatra was politician first, legend later. And if you strip away the romance, what remains is even more impressive. A young woman inheriting a crumbling throne, exiled by her own court, returning through calculated alliance.